Okay, the webinar has now started. It's recording, it's now live. We're going to be waiting for attendees to start popping in. You said Carl Ginsberg?
Carl Ginsberg.
Perfect.
And there's Conrad as well.
Yeah. I have
Carl Ginsberg is on the attendees.
And Lynn Schaefer.
all right, transferring the panelist. Okay. Was there anyone else you want me to?
Conrad Starr and Lynn Schaefer.
Yeah.
Oh, I see Lynn. Conrad. Perfect. And then
I'm not sure if you got Rachel Groner yet.
Yep.
The others.
I saw her right now. I was just because the names keep moving up and down, and it's like a little game of like whack-a-mole trying to find them.
Exactly what I was going to go for. It always feels like whack-a-mole.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so I'm going to start now. Hello. We are now going to begin. My name is Freddie Coupinames with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment, and I'll be serving as the production assistant for today's session. Feel free to send a message in the chat if you have any questions or need support. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our presenters.
Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Botts-Forbes. I am the LAFD CERT Central Bureau Coordinator and the Central Bureau Director of the Neighborhood Team Program. Go ahead and do a short presentation on the Neighborhood Team Program, and then we'll turn it over to the other panelists to introduce themselves and to talk about how their neighborhood councils have utilized the Neighborhood Team Program, initiated it, and how it's worked for their neighborhood councils. As soon as I find the presentation. Can everybody mute themselves? For more information about the Neighborhood Team Program, you can visit us at www.ntp-la.org or email us at info@ntp-la.org. The primary goal of the Neighborhood Team Program is to develop, train, organize self-sufficient neighborhood disaster response teams. These teams will activate after an emergency or disaster such as an earthquake and respond into their own communities, especially when the fire department and other professional first responders are not available. This is particularly in the first hour to 2 hours after that earthquake occurs. A question comes up a lot: are we being paranoid or are we just being prepared? And the going theory is the blue sky theory, which is under normal everyday today, there are no disasters, no major emergencies, and we have exactly enough professional first responders to handle 99% of the emergencies that happen every single day. Our markets and gas stations run on what's called a just-in-time inventory. That means that they have exactly what they need during the week before they get restocked, and as they run out, they get restocked. So they don't keep excess supply, they don't keep anything more than what they expect to use during that week until their next restock. And of course, we have a lot of blue sky days in Los Angeles. FEMA has ranked Los Angeles County as the #1 in their entire country most at risk for a natural disaster. We actually haven't had a major regional disaster in Los Angeles since the 1938 flood. And as we know, we had Northridge, but that was really a localized quake that affected the Northridge area. Other parts of the city might have lost power, but they weren't heavily devastated like Northridge was. What we expect for the big one, or a quake that's really going to be more than 10 times as powerful as Northridge, we're over 100 years overdue for that. That will be something devastating. That will affect everything from the Salton Sea up to Bakersfield, possibly even more of the state of California. And it's going to be a level of devastation that none of us have can even comprehend, really, if you think about it. And certainly on our day-to-day, where we don't have disasters, it will append everything that we do and everything that we expect to happen. What we've seen in natural disasters is that we're seeing an increased frequency of them and increased severity. If you look at the hurricanes that are hitting the South, those are seasonal, but they're getting worse. We're getting more Category 5s and major Category 4s hitting the Gulf Coast and even the Eastern Seaboard. We're getting more severe blizzards. We're getting more severe tornadoes and dust storms and all of the things we don't have to worry about in Southern California. But this is happening every year and it's getting worse. After a natural disaster, 90% of the survivors are actually rescued by other survivors. So if we're expecting that the professional first responders that we rely on are going to be there for us, it's really us. It's us taking care of ourselves and our neighbors. The neighborhood team program is really a natural evolution of the community emergency response team. What we're doing is we're taking essential disaster preparedness principles and taking it down to the neighborhood block level. We're taking it to our immediate neighbors and teaching them how to be prepared and how to get ready, and then what to do immediately after that disaster. What we want to do is we want to form neighborhood disaster response teams that are going to be made of those who have been trained under RYLAN, CERT, or some other programs, and combine them with the non-trained community volunteers, the neighbors who are able-bodied and want to help out, but haven't gone through any of the training, and provide a large comprehensive team that can be effective. And what we're providing with the neighborhood team program is really a continuous guidance and support of our prospective team leaders. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. The programs that we have that are part of the neighborhood team program, we're not teaching them ourselves. We're not teaching community emergency response team. We're not teaching Ready Your LA Neighborhood or Map Your Neighborhood. We're bringing in our partners who are the firefighters who teach the CERT program. We're bringing in EMD to teach the Ready Your LA Neighborhood program. We're bringing in other partners as needed to really teach this. But what we're doing is we're combining the best aspects of the existing programs, and we're helping you get them scheduled in your area so that you can get the benefit of these programs and the training. What we really want to do is make it easy to implement, but keep it comprehensive and make it turnkey, so that if you say your neighborhood council wants to do this, then we've got a plan for you. We come in with a kind of a schedule and say, okay, let us know when you're ready. These are the steps. And then we're going to engage. We're going to bring the resources in and help you through the process, and then keep you on track with the process. Additionally, we need to keep this easy to approach, because there are disaster nerds out there, such as myself and some of the other panelists up here, who this is what we do in our free time and we love it. But there are people who just go, I don't even know where to start. And it is so overwhelming. And if I'm presented with too much information, I'm going to just go home. We need to keep it easy for them and not scare them away in the process. As well as we also need to not discourage people by saying you have to take a 7-week class and dedicate your 2 months of your life to this process, or you can't be part of it. And we definitely are not doing that anymore. The neighborhood team program was created in 2010 by the South LA, the Battalion 18 CERT coordinator, Larry Bogatz. It was a partnership between LA City EMD, LAFD, and LAPD. And the pilot program created 12 organized neighborhood teams and had support from 5 neighborhood councils. We combined several featured programs. The first one is Ready Your Los Angeles Neighborhood from LA City EMD. And it's really an easy to introduce 2-hour session on how to organize your neighborhood. It's based on the Map Your Neighborhood program, and it emphasizes getting to know your neighbors, identifying resources and risks in your immediate neighborhood, your 20 household block, and gives you a 9-step, easy to follow guide of what to do right after that earthquake. However, RYLAN does rely on additional training, such as the Community Emergency Response Team training, to handle larger problems than they cover in their 2-hour sessions. So that brings us to Community Emergency Response Team. This program was created in 1986 by the Los Angeles Fire Department. It consists of 17.5 hours of training. LAFD does it where it's a 7-week course, 2.5 hours a night, 1 night a week. And it teaches you core disaster response skills, teaching you how to organize your team, how to be safe when you're deployed out, how to do light search and rescue without needing heavy equipment, how to do basic first aid, and how to use a fire extinguisher. Neighborhood Watch is a program that's sponsored by LAPD, and there's a lot of neighborhood watch groups out there, actually. We want to engage with these existing groups, and these groups meet with their senior lead officers from LAPD. These groups are, some of these groups are very active. They're always keeping an eye on the situation in their neighborhood. They're getting to know their neighbors, what's going on in and outs. And some of them are actually using 2-way radios. They're amazing groups to work with where they're already fully engaged. And we do know that some neighborhoods actually do want to start their own neighborhood watch program. So we'd love to introduce them to their senior leads and get that process started if they need that. Neighborhood disaster response teams are really going to be the core response in any disaster. They have to be grassroots in origin. They have to be built by the community members. If you look at the city of Los Angeles, 4 million people with 3,000 firefighters split over 3 shifts, so really 1,000 firefighters on duty at any time. And I think maybe 4 people working for EMD right now. Their staffing has really shifted quite a bit, and they're trying to bring more people on board. But the people who are organizing the response aspect of it, they're few and far between. In terms of CERT coordinators, we have maybe 2 battalion coordinators per battalion throughout the city. And each bureau, there's 4 bureaus in the city of Los Angeles, and each of us was 1 bureau coordinator. The numbers don't work in our favor. So if you're expecting us to be able to just say, okay, we're going to set up a team here, and we're going to set up a team for this neighborhood, and we're going to do all the work, it's impossible. It is impossible for the paid staff of the city of Los Angeles. It's impossible for the current volunteers. So we really do need you as neighborhood members, community members, to step up and say, hey, I want to do this. I want to be a team leader. And what we'll do is we'll build the team around you. We need the focal point. We need the point of contact so that we can talk to you, and then you're going to talk to your neighbors, and we're going to provide the support, logistics, and infrastructure to help you get started, and the guidance. And we're going to be there for you and with you to support you along this journey. But we need you to take the lead and the initiative and to bring up the ideas, and then we'll guide you along it and say, oh, we've seen this tried in other parts of the city. It didn't work, and this is why, and guide you along the way so that you don't make the same mistakes that other communities have made. When you start your neighborhood team program, it starts with 6 orientation sessions, followed by the first of a quarterly drill. And the sessions include neighborhood preparedness and organization. That's where we introduce the neighborhood team program. We introduce you to EMD and the RYLAN program and have you learn about that, which is really going to be that first step of getting your neighbors involved. And then we'll follow through with how we're going to plan out the rest of the sessions and where we're moving forward with the organization of your neighborhood and the response plan. Second session will be on personal and family preparedness, then disaster medical, light search and rescue, two-way radio communications, neighborhood security and situational awareness. And then we do the drill where we meet at a possible staging area and deploy out teams into the neighborhood, walk planned disaster response routes and see if they're viable, communicate back with the two-way radios and make sure the communications works. And then we take this feedback and say, okay, this didn't work. This is where we had problems. This route had a locked alleyway in it, and we had to route around that. And so we constantly adjust the plan, and we come back quarterly just to make sure the plan is working and make adjustments as needed. During the drill, we follow the step-by-step guides and standard operating procedures that we've developed. These are short, easy to follow, 2 to 4 pages at the most. And these will be standardized across the city, but they'll be customized for each neighborhood. So if you drill with us in the valley and then come drill with us in the harbor, you're going to see the same stuff. You're going to see the same step-by-step guides and the same SOP, but you'll see the different map and you'll see some customizations for that particular neighborhood because every neighborhood is different. If you're in Mount Washington or you're in mid-city, your neighborhoods look dramatically different. We've written these guides to be easy to approach and easy to be readable by those who are trained, as well, and most especially for the people who are not trained. We don't want to alienate the people and say you have to have all these requirements to attend and be part of this team. We want to make it open for everybody. The guides are really going to focus on setting up a staging area and responding to the disaster, and then using two-way radio communications. Additionally, we provide monthly online trainings and in-person drills. If you go to our calendar, calendar.ntp-la.org, you can see our master calendar of the upcoming events. We have our radio nets up there as well. Those are radio networks where you check in using a two-way radio and just to test your equipment every week or every month. We provide a continuing education session every third Wednesday of the month, and these topics will vary from beginner to intermediate to advanced. So we'll go over the basics time and time again, but we also provide more advanced topics to keep the people who are more experienced coming back, but we don't want to scare away the beginners. We need to reinforce certain skills because we don't do this professionally. If we only see this once every 2 years, we've already forgotten most of these things. The topics are going to focus on team leadership and organization, two-way radio communication, disaster medical, reviewing the step-by-step guides. You'll hear these topics come up over and over again because that's really the focus of a lot of the training on these key things, because these are what we're going to need during a disaster. Every fourth Wednesday of the month, we do radio training, and these are scenario based. You'll be in a team and you'll be working with a facilitator to figure out the story that's being presented to you, figure out how you're going to progress and do critical thinking, and how you're going to make sure you safely approach an incident, and then how you're going to handle it and then communicate it back to net control or staging area over the radio. And these are all actually online. We're doing it with the simulated radio system, and we're doing this through Zoom. Additionally, we're going to start doing in-person drills. These will be ad hoc pop-up. They're going to be quick and dirty. We're going to get in and out 2 hours at the most. We will, because COVID is still an issue, we will be making sure that we have COVID precautions in place. Everybody will be required to wear a face covering. Everybody will be required to socially distance as possible. And we're not going to put you in a scenario where it's dangerous. We're not doing any in-building training at this time. And these are all community-based. These are community volunteers who have said, hey, let's do the drill in my area. And we help them organize these drills. If you want to visit our YouTube channel at videos, join.ntp-la.org. You'll be able to find the trainings that we have online already. What we're really trying to focus on are identifying neighborhood staging areas and getting them negotiated and set up. We're working with their local leaders to identify them, and these will be houses of worship, businesses who have space where we can meet kind of out of the way and organize. The entire team will go there, be say in the back of a parking lot or in an alleyway, just kind of off the main boulevard, so it's not too obvious where people are meeting. And we want to set up agreements with these businesses and houses of worship so that we can have something in writing and in place, so they know that the team will go there and the team will train there on a regular basis. We're trying to then fund neighborhood staging area kits at these locations. These kits will have maps, forms, clipboards, predefined damage assessment routes of the area, so that when you get there, you're given a map and say, okay, this is the route you're going to take, walk this, radio it in, let us know of any incidents you encounter. And then we can track those teams on a map and know where they are at any given time based on their last call-in. We will also have licensed two-way radios there. We encourage everybody to have a family radio service radio and FRS radio with them, but we're providing additional better communications that we can standardize and train on and know that this is what we expect to happen with these radio communications at any time, versus anyone who brings their random radio. We don't know the capability of that radio. We don't know the limitations of that radio, and those quickly become a problem. And finally, we'll have medical resupply. Everyone is expected to bring their own response bags and have their own supplies, but as we burn through these supplies, we will need to restock if we want to continue helping our neighbors. The quarterly drills will really practice our neighborhood disaster teams being able to form up and respond to a disaster, and make sure that it's repeatable, make sure that it's starting to become muscle memory. They're going to follow their step-by-step guides. They're going to set up the neighborhood staging area. They're going to perform a damage assessment, and they're going to communicate back with two-way radios. And then as they progress as a team and really start getting this down, we'll start introducing more advanced things, incident response that they'll have to do, and then push their skills at that point. One of the biggest hurdles that we've had to deal with is a lack of centralized communication. You take the CERT class and the fire department has your information, but they don't share it with their volunteers. Us as volunteer coordinators, we have to beg people to give us their information. So if you take a CERT class and the coordinator's there, we can get your information. But if we don't make it to that class, then we lose the entire class effectively. So we've set up a website, join.ntp-la.org, where everyone can sign up who's interested in being part of this or learning more about disaster preparedness. And they'll get on our email list. They'll get our monthly emails. They'll find out about our upcoming trainings, meetings, drills, and anything else that we have to push out to them. And we do try and limit how many emails we send to 2 to 3 a month. Generally one at the beginning of the month, one before our mid week or our mid-month training. And then if any ad hoc thing comes up, like we had a training opportunity with the Red Cross, we push that information out. So of course, how do you get started? Well, first of all, you need to let us know that you're interested in being a neighborhood team leader. I would say sign up at join.ntp-la.org and mark the checkbox that says you're interested in being a neighborhood team leader. And then email us. You can email us at info@ntp-la.org and say, hey, I'm interested in being a neighborhood team leader in my area. Next thing, we need you to work with your neighborhood council. You can bring us in to do a presentation, but it's hard for us to reach out to the 99 neighborhood councils and start the ball rolling. We really need the point of contact. We need this neighborhood team leader to do this and be the interface. And then we're going to work with you in the neighborhood council, but we really need you as that leader to build the team around you. And then of course, recruit other team leaders. We don't want a single point of failure. We've had teams that have failed because it wasn't even a single person. We had a team in Glassell Park where we had two great women who were really gung-ho, and we were doing a lot of progress. And within the span of 3 months, I think, both of them moved out of the city. And the team has never recovered since then. So we always need to bring more people in to take those leadership roles. And it's never I'm the one who's in charge. It's a team, a leadership team that we're developing and building. But it starts with one person. The next thing you need to do is get 2 people and 3 people, build your team. After that, we're going to schedule the 6th session orientation. We're going to start doing these on, we're going to do them monthly on weeknights. We've discovered from from experience, right now, Crenshaw Manor is doing their session. I think it's every 2 weeks on Saturdays, and it is nonstop conflicted with other things that we're doing, including today. Chin, our South Bureau director, has had to switch over to that. So he's missing this presentation so that he can get the Crenshaw Manor session taught. So we're no longer going to be scheduling weekend sessions, and we're not going to do, in that case, we had a couple ones that were doing it twice a month, and that was just too much of a burden to get that going and maintain that momentum. So it will be monthly weeknights, and unless you have a really good exception, then we'll consider that. After that, we're going to schedule the mapping exercise, or it's going to be either the first drill or mapping exercise that'll be more ad hoc. We're going to have you go out into your community with radios, identify resources, risks, and possible neighborhood staging areas. And finally, we're going to schedule that first quarterly drill. That will be on a weekend, probably, and get that all coordinated. Finally, we want you to request an MPG, and we'll provide the resources to do that, the 501c3 to do that, to get a neighborhood staging area kit at the staging area that we've identified. Some of the participating neighborhood councils that have gone through this: West Adams Neighborhood Council, Venice Neighborhood Council, Palms, Coastal San Pedro, LA 32, North Hills. There's several more on here that I have forgotten. I quickly drew up this slide this morning, so I apologize to any of the neighborhood councils that were left off this list. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at info@ntp-la.org and visit our website at www.ntp-la.org. Next, I'd like to play a video. Freddie, do you have that video queued up? This was a video taken at the gray burn drill that we just did a couple weeks ago. There's no audio, Freddie. When you share your screen, you need to check the box that says share audio and optimize video. Oh, there we go.
If there is a public emergency, the fire department is not coming. They have to go to the larger areas.
We've gone complacent. If you lose power, your cell phone goes down, most people, I guarantee you, will not know what to do. In the city of Los Angeles, we have this dependency upon the professionals. Professional EMS, 911, police department, fire department. And what will happen after a disaster is they will be completely overwhelmed and immediately unable to fulfill the needs of the community.
What we're doing with this program is using it as an introductory, getting people interested, getting neighborhoods interested, and they can go to those higher levels.
We have learned how to triage. That means that if there were a large public event, we would be able to discern who needs immediate, who can wait, and who's a walking wounded, and who cannot be helped. That's very important. If you have, say, 50, 100 or more injuries, then you need to know who needs help.
We are using people's front lawns to put down a victim, obviously simulated victim, or a gas problem, or an electrical problem, or a water mains problem. These are citizens. They are citizens who are not used to doing search and rescue, but they have to be employed because they are the only bastion we have between us and the problems that occur after an earthquake.
The Red Cross, FEMA, they all say be prepared for at least 1 week to 3 weeks minimum.
With our neighborhood team program, what we're endeavoring to do is to get residents interested by giving them some of the basics of what they get in CERT. And as they get their skills up to speed, they can eventually move up to that CERT level.
Thank you. And I'd like to turn this over to Lynetta, who you heard her voice at the beginning of this video.
Hello, everyone. This is Lynetta McElroy speaking to you, and I'm from Grayburn Avenue Block Club. I am the captain and founder of the Block Club. We have an annual emergency skills drill that we engage in even during COVID. The point is just what Patrick said and was also mentioned in the video. If there's a public emergency, the fire department, the public emergency personnel, they're not coming. And that is why it is so important at your families and for your families that live around you on your block, you need to know what to do. So let's think about that. Remember when there was just a recent earthquake? What did you do? Did you sit there, stand there? Or did you at least put your head under the table or desk? Did you try to protect yourself? I want you to know how important it is, because a few years ago, there was a more serious earthquake. And I didn't know the things that I later learned with CERT. And so I had a china cabinet where all the glass fell down and broke. I also was sleeping near a large bookcase I was expecting at the time. The books fell on the bed, and by the grace of God, I wasn't seriously injured. So later on, when the CERT classes were made available, I took those CERT classes and I learned how to protect myself and my family. And if I could say, if you get anything from this discussion, and we only have about 8 minutes to this presentation, if you get anything, please be prepared, yourself, your family. What we do on Grayburn, we're very concerned with safety. And so we give a checklist to our neighbors. We also give a virtual one. But again, we give one every year to our neighbors. Patrick mentioned the NTP program. Well, what we have done, we took about 2 hours to do this. And this was about 3 years ago, and we do need to refresh it. But this is what the city had us to do. I hope you can see that. And so we had a large meeting. We meet every week. Actually, we usually meet today, but I'm here, so we're not having our Grayburn Avenue Block Club annual meeting, or excuse me, monthly meeting. But you see, we go through what people actually have. What are they willing to do? Because if there's an emergency, maybe some homes will have leakage with their gas or with their water meter. Do they know what to do? Do they know when to turn it off? How to turn it off? Do they have the instrument that's necessary? And who's going to be responsible for that? If you're at work, does your neighbor know that you will permit them to turn off their gas meter if they hear a hissing sound or if they smell gas? Also, because we have a unique situation, we have very tall trees on our street, then we need to know, does someone have a chainsaw? Well, because we fill this out with our neighbors, we know who has a chainsaw and who has other kinds of instruments that people might need to know. Again, you need to make sure that you can communicate with your neighbors. What we do on Grayburn, we have what we call a monthly program that is not just for our street, but for the surrounding areas, which for us, that's a North Leimert Park. We practice using these radios. They're pretty inexpensive, about $50, but we practice. Speaking on the radio takes skill. And again, we learn how to speak. And again, we want to make sure everyone retains their privacy, but we also want to make sure that we can communicate, because if your cell phone, if the cell towers go down, which can easily occur, you need to know how to communicate with one another. who needs help. And because we've practiced, we know which individuals have these phones, who has the next level up, and who has the ham radio. And that person, even though that person does not live on my street, but he's a person who does actually our organization for our radio practice, he is the one that would communicate with Chin, and Chin would communicate with our local fire department, because they cannot have everyone calling in. They will not be able to respond, as we mentioned. So
Thanks, Lynetta. I want to get over to Mary Ellen Barnes, who can tell us about how NTP is working in her community.
thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Lynetta. Thanks, Patrick. I'm Mary Ellen Barnes. I am in Point Furman, which is part of Coastal San Pedro Neighborhood Council. We are about as far away from Los Angeles and still in Los Angeles as one could possibly be. And so we know down here that nobody's coming to help us because it's just too far from the main part of the city. So we are very interested in this program. We just started it in Point Furman. We had our first meeting a couple weeks ago, and we are organizing our neighborhoods by neighborhood watch blocks. So other areas in coastal San Pedro are doing it, like going real big to start. We're starting small and going to try to move outward from there. And it seems to be working, because it's like the next door neighbor talks to their next door neighbor and the person across the street, and it kind of builds out, which is good. It helps us to get to know our neighbors. We're right at the point we're doing the Map Your Neighborhood, the RYLAN part that Lynetta was showing you, the big pamphlet, and she can hold it up again. And we're just at that point right now. So we're finding out who's who in our neighborhood and what skills they have. And it's actually really fun. So I would encourage everybody to take a stab at doing this. Patrick and Chin are very helpful, and it's interesting and fun to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Dave Brown, I'd like to hear how North Hills Neighborhood Council is doing this.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for attending. In the interest of time, I have to say very quickly that those of us that have been doing this for a long time significantly are aware and appreciate the work Patrick and Chin and others have contributed into the neighborhood team program to organize it, condense it, make it in a palatable, presentable fashion initially to the neighbor council system for the sake of leverage. Those of you that are unfamiliar with this general topic may have had limited exposure and experience. If it looks easy to you, that's due to the hard work of the people in the background presenting it to you for engagement. With that being said, the North Hills West Neighborhood Council has followed a variety of leads. We're not shy about copying anybody else's good work in progress. We've implemented our own community emergency preparedness plan, subject to future engagement with the neighbor team program, and we're going to refine it based upon that engagement. We did it the hard way, don't recommend it, but at least we have something. We've also, I think it was item number 6 on the recommended NTP list, of having a community emergency engagement spot with a emergency preparedness replenishment catch, CATCHE, of fundamental short-term medical supplies, things you're going to need in the first 8 hours, say, for example. Easy to do. Neighborhood councils can do a neighborhood purposes grant to fund it. There's minimal work on the part of the neighborhood councils. The whole thing here is, here's something that works. It's easy to understand, implement. You can take it in your own individualized bite-sized pieces. And as a neighborhood council, we're all constrained by available time. So it doesn't get easier than this. We've all experienced all the prior big dollar grant initiatives that have come and gone. This works, and it's not reliant upon a big grant, which means it'll probably continue to work. A significant thing for us to look forward too negatively in the future, in addition to all the natural hazards. The governor, just following his non-recall, signed Senate Bills 9 and 10, which heavily promote high-density housing. Some of that transition from single family to high density is going to be at the expense of ergonomic emergency preparedness. If you have a single family home, you physically are much more able to prepare. If you're in a high density environment, you may be lucky to park a car given some of the wording of the recently approved legislation. And to give a very brief example of that, Mr. Schaefer, could you speak to perhaps the high density, relatively underserved communities in respect to emergency preparedness?
Yes, we with the Neighborhood Council Emergency Preparedness Alliance have realized that there's 60% plus of the city residents are renters, which means they generally live in multi-family areas. And what we would like to do is perhaps see if our city council will first encourage and perhaps later pass city legislation that those types of housing must have set aside areas where emergency supplies can be stored because of the difficulty of people living in apartments and even smaller condos, being able to keep water and food and other necessary things that will sustain them for up to 2 weeks. So that's something we're going to be investigating.
Great, thank you. I think we're right at time. Do we have a few more minutes, Freddie?
I was going to actually start have a virtual round of applause for our presenters here.
Thank you everyone for attending. And I'll be at the networking session if anybody has any questions.
And thank you all for your time, for sharing your time and participating in the session. I've put into the chat the link to the 5-question workshop evaluation. So please take a moment to complete that. Remember that at the closing session, we'll announce the 10 winners of this year's Congress of Neighborhood swag bags from the names that complete the workshop survey. The next on the schedule is the workshop session 2 that I've put the website URL in the chat so you can access the rooms for the next session. Before this room closes, there will be a commercial playing up next. So you can either head over to the website that was linked on the chat or listen to the commercial at the moment. After the commercial ends, this session will close promptly. And the next session, session 3, will commence. Again, thank you all so much. I'm going to copy and paste in the chat again one more time the link to the workshop evaluation, as well as the lounge and the schedule for upcoming rooms and sessions. Thank you all for presenting for this very important topic.
This is Thyris Mason, the president of the Empowerment Congress North Area Neighborhood Development Council. We were inspired to address the food insecurities caused by COVID-19. On Saturday, August 15, 2020, in 90-degree weather, we hosted a drive-through food distribution at St. Mark's Church, along with our partner, City 8 Councilman Marquise Harris Dawson. With the help of South LA Cafe and many volunteers from the community, we were able to give away 300 bags of food and PPE to local residents. This is just a part of what we do in our effort to build a stronger community. Our work is far from done. To learn more about us, please visit www.nandac.org.
Hello, I'm LA Controller Ron Galprin, and I'm glad to join you all for this 11th Annual Congress of Neighborhoods. I wish we were together in person, but this is the next best thing. And despite the many challenges of the times we're in, it's also a reflection of resiliency and the way our neighborhood councils have stepped up. Outreach, advocacy, community engagement, and helping neighbors has been inspirational. Thank you for what you do. I was a member of my neighborhood council many years ago, and I met so many wonderful people, and I got to better understand how our city works. And it was through that I became a neighborhood council budget advocate, then a commissioner, and then the job of controller of our City of Angels. I remember attending the Congress of Neighborhoods as a neighborhood council member, and many of the friendships I have today are from those years. Among you today are the leaders of our city, today and into the future. The last 18 months of our pandemic have been challenging for us as individuals, families, neighborhoods, and our city government. We've learned many lessons and continue to do so. We've learned to adapt, to pivot, and how to continue in our own lives and in the work of our city. My priorities as city controller have continued to be about transparency, accountability, and delivering the most we can with the resources we have. Sometimes it's my job to be a cheerleader for the city, sometimes to serve as a critic, in all times to be a watchdog at City Hall. I'm proud of the work that's been done by the incredible people working in the Controller's office during these last 18 months. We've kept constant vigil on the bottom line. We launched a COVID-19 resource hub with constantly updating resources, a food resource map for people needing food assistance, an LGBTQ youth resource map, a virus tracker, a business loans tracker, a COVID-19 spending tracker, detailing every COVID-19 related dollar spent by the city. And we've dived into how to improve our 311 service, illegal dumping, and how the city can and must improve its handling of the homelessness crisis, including an outreach, interim strategies, and how to bring down the high cost of affordable and supportive housing. You can now follow how the city is spending federal dollars it's receiving and will receive as part of the American Rescue Plan, and we created a first ever equity index that looks at each neighborhood in LA and pinpoints specific challenges, economic, educational, health, environmental, and more. I encourage you to explore all these resources and tools by visiting my website at lacontroller.org. As neighborhood council members, each of you have an important role to play in setting our priorities as a city and making sure the city's budget reflects those priorities. Knowledge is power, and the more you know about the finances of the city and our challenges and our opportunities, the more effective advocates you will be. Thank you for all you do in our communities and for your dedication to creating a better Los Angeles. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Councilmember Nithya Raman, representing the 4th District in our great city of Los Angeles. They say that all politics is local politics. And what better example do we have than our own city's great neighborhood councils? When you want something done in your community, the first place so many of us turn is our neighborhood council, and for good reason. So much of what we've achieved in Los Angeles has been the product of community members getting involved, making their voice heard, and doing the work to see what they want in their own communities realized. When we make progress on the local level, we can scale that up to create citywide change. I used to be on my neighborhood council, so I know that this kind of work is a daily practice for so many of you in the neighborhood council system. This is a world where you have a million other things you could be doing. And so I commend your commitment, your involvement. Our office is only as powerful as the number of people who tune in and advocate for their voice to be heard and get their hands dirty and do the work themselves. So today, I'm very heartened to recognize the great work being done at this week's Congress to help develop the tools and the strategies to empower neighborhood council members. And through that, empower the communities all of you represent. I congratulate and thank you from the bottom of my heart for serving as representatives of your neighborhoods and look forward to working with you hand in hand to make Los Angeles the city we know it can be.